How we doing, guys? Welcome to the preview and the predicted lineup. Arsenal against Atletico Madrid. Champions League action, and this is probably the toughest game that we've got so far in the Champions League. And it comes right in the middle of two Premier League fixtures, of course. And there will be a lot of talk about what will we do in terms of the squad. Will there be changes? Will we make rotation? I'm not too sure. It's a difficult one because it's such a big game. This is not Olympiacos. You can't be making the kind of changes that we made in that game in this one. When you're looking at Atletico Madrid, of course, Diego Simeone, the manager, and it's actually the first time we're going to be playing Atletico Madrid in the Champions League. We have played them before in Europe, but that was the Europa League, believe it or not. But looking at them this season, it's kind of a mixed bag for me. Lost one and won one already in the Champions League. They lost at Liverpool. But that was an interesting game as well because, you know, they had a very shocking opening 5 minutes or so in that game that saw them 2-0 down. And then they were able to pull it back to 2-2, but then they still ultimately lost the game. Last time out against Eintracht Frankfurt, 5-1 win, very comfortable. And when you're looking at their league form, they sit fourth in La Liga, but they have only lost one game all season, which is the same as Real Madrid and Barcelona. The problem for Madrid has been draws. They've drawn 4 of their games, and that's ultimately why they're sitting fourth in the league. Conceded 10 goals in La Liga, but it was only a few weeks ago that they absolutely annihilated Real Madrid, 5-2. So this is why I say it's pretty much a mixed bag. What are you going to get from Atletico Madrid? Are they as defensive-minded as they were in previous years under Simeone? I'm not too sure. They are susceptible. They are vulnerable, and you can score goals against them. How will they play? I feel that they will play counter-attack football. Julian Alvarez, a player that we know very well from Man City, quality player. And you give him half a chance and he will score. Antoine Griezmann, of course, we know about him all too well. And he has scored at the Emirates as well. If you think of that game that we had, in the Europa League. Conor Gallagher, again, another player that we should know all too well from his time at Chelsea, also Crystal Palace. But he's doing really well for Madrid. Very good player, and he will be very busy in the midfield and look to get in and amongst us and cause problems and unsettle the rhythm. And then, of course, in goal, Jan Oblak, maybe not the player he was a few years ago, but nevertheless, he's still a quality goalkeeper. And on his day, he can, be up there amongst, the best of them. But, listen, they've got a good side, very good side. But like I said, it's what Atletico Madrid you face. Do you face the one that is all attack, all, guns blazing and everything else and kind of, going for the throat like they did against Real Madrid? Or are you going to kind of face that Atletico Madrid side that we saw maybe in the opening minutes against Liverpool? It's an interesting one. But, in terms of us, like I said, this game comes right in, the middle of 2 big Premier League games. We've navigated one of them with Fulham, but we've got Crystal Palace at the weekend. In years gone by, you would have probably looked at a Champions League game in between Fulham and Crystal Palace and said, yeah, I'll take that. That's all right. And you still will. But it's maybe a little bit more difficult than it used to be in recent years, especially Crystal Palace, because they're a very good side right now, although they did concede 3 at the weekend. But, at the same time, they've got the likes of Mateta who's causing problems at the other end. But, we'll deal with that one as and when. But, yeah, I feel that there may be a couple of changes for this. I feel that it was quite evident in some of the stuff that Mikel said before the Fulham game about players' management and their load and everything else. And, he could go with the same kind of side that he went with Fulham and then go with it again against Crystal Palace. We are at home against Crystal Palace, so that might come into the thought process. Could we change, some players in that game, not this one? I don't know. I don't want to look too far ahead as well and think about what games are coming up. But, after the weekend, the majority of these players will get a rest because it's, the Carabao Cup. And although we're playing Brighton, there will be wholesale changes. And then the next Champions League game in the midweek after, we've got Slavia Prague. And with all due respect to them, that's the kind of game you could see changes. So it's an interesting one, and it leaves you kind of second guessing and what will happen. Our record against Spanish sides, by the way, is very, very good as well. So it's all set up to be a very, very interesting game. So with that said, let's go and get into the predicted lineup. In goal, David Raya. Very straightforward, no changes here. And it's very simple. Right back will be Jurriën Timber. Again, I don't think this will change. I don't think Ben White is anywhere near up to the levels to be starting a game against Atletico Madrid. You've got to bring him back up his levels when we play the likes of Brighton in the Carabao Cup, maybe a Slavia Prague, etc. But this game, all day long, Jurriën Timber plays. Right centre-back, William Saliba. Again, a very straightforward one. There's no changes. It's just straightforward. Left centre-back, Gabriel. Again, no issues, no changes or anything else. Hencape is back in training and everything. I know he weren't in the squad against Fulham, but that was kind of expected. And I think, again, it's a player that over the next couple of weeks will start to get some minutes and start to play some games, Carabao Cup and everything else. And, really start to get, himself in contention to be involved and give the likes of Gabriel some needed rest and everything. But yeah, listen, for this game, Gabriel starts. Left back position. I was looking at this and thinking, could Miles Lewis-Skelly start the game? I don't think he will. I think that Colourful will start this one. Maybe Miles Lewis-Skelly will start the game against Crystal Palace. That would be an interesting one. But Colourful, I think, has been exceptionally good all season, to be fair. And I just don't think that it's going to change at all, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. Moving into the midfield. Now, this is where I do think there may well be a change, and this may shock people. And it's mainly based on the fact of what Mikel said before the Fulham game about Martin Zubimendi and his workload, and he needed that extra day and everything else. And I just feel maybe for this game, he may be brought out of the side, and I feel that Declan Rice will be there. Will be able to deal with Conor Gallagher and his threat of those late runs and the energy and everything. I just feel that maybe for this one, Declan Rice will start the game as that number 6. On the right-hand side will be Bukayo Saka. Very straightforward, this one. Can't wait for Noni Madueke to be back so that we can kind of rotate things and let Saka, get some rest when it's needed and whatever. But I don't think there's any issues right now. I think that his management has been, done perfectly well. And he was very, very good against Fulham. And we need that kind of performance again. A player that, grabs the game by the scruff of the neck, armband on, played like a captain. Very, very simple. In the middle, I feel that we will go with Eberechi Eza. Didn't have a good game against Fulham. Let's make it right. But I just feel for this game, if he's going to have Declan Rice behind Eza in that 10, no problem. And then next up, Mikel Moreno. I feel that Mikel Arteta will look for Moreno's aerial ability in both boxes, which is why I've kind of gone with this formation the way that we've gone with. And I feel that, with Eza there, we don't lose that creative side. Do you understand? It's not like Rice, Moreno, Zubimendi, which we all don't like or whatever. But yeah, I just feel that this gives us enough balance, and I'm quite happy with that, to be perfectly honest. On the left-hand side, I'm going to go with Martinelli. I would change things up. I think that in Europe, you get a little bit more space. Although I do think Atletico will play counter-attack. It's just not as intense as the Premier League. And I think that Martinelli's kind of been waiting in the wings and patiently, waiting for that opportunity. And I think this one maybe give him that opportunity. When he's came off the bench, I think he's done well and scored goals and nearly scored at Fulham as well. And yeah, I'd play him for this game. And then up front, as the main striker, Victor Gyökeres. And a lot of talk about Victor Gyökeres and his lack of goals. But what he does give you, over the rest of the pitch where he doesn't score, it's just that ability to occupy so many other defenders and allow others to be brought into the game. And, there were a couple of moments against Fulham, his link up with Bukayo Saka, those little runs off the shoulder, and Bern Leno had to make a couple of fantastic saves. And I like that because it's starting to see little bits where I'm going, okay, there's little parts there that are working and they're starting to understand each other, but he needs more of that. And ultimately, what he needs as a striker is a goal. And I think that once he gets that, he can relax a little bit more, and then hopefully things start to flow. And yeah, listen, I've got no issues. And like I said, I think the criticism has been over the top. And this is somebody that's new to the league, adjusting to everything. And he's been quite unfortunate in many respects of Kai Havertz getting injured, because it's meant that he's had to play every minute. He's had to be, involved in every game, where there's some, you could have probably brought him out of the firing line and Kai Havertz would have played, and, he maybe would have came on with 15, 20 minutes to go and, got a goal and everything. And context is key. I've got no issues with him at all. So listen, there we go. That is it for the preview and the predicted lineup. I think that's a very strong lineup. Just the one little change in there. Well, a couple of changes. Trossard coming out as well. But Zubimendi, I'm looking at the workload and everything. Maybe he'll play, maybe he won't. I just think that maybe that's what Mikel will go with. But who knows? Like we always say, it's unpredictable now, which is the best thing. In years gone by, it was all too predictable. We always knew who was playing, where they were playing, what was going to happen. But now we're kind of second guessing and we're thinking maybe, yeah. It's good. It's a nice headache to have. So, big game. And it'd be nice to keep the winning run going, 3 out of 3. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting matchup. Arteta against Simeone. And of course, Andrea Berta against his former club as well. He's going to be watching from the sidelines, interested to see, because, a lot of these players he would have brought into Atletico Madrid. So maybe he can give some little secrets away, but we don't know. But listen, you know what to do. If you haven't already, let me know in the comment section and everything else about lineup and what you think. And yeah, we'll see what happens. It's a big, big game. So listen, like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you lot very soon. I'm out of here.